a closer look into the release itself. Then we'll show you where you can find some information specific to the release and Allocadia as a whole. And then when we get to the end, we'll have a few minutes left over for some questions and answers. So just a little bit of background here. Allocadia was first built back in 2010 on a platform called Flex. And we had done that at the time because of its strong competencies in rich user experience. Anyone that's familiar with technology knows that Flex is not really the leader in the space. It's actually going away. And as a result, it's sort of driven us to shifting to HTML, if you will. Along with that, there are a lot of mobile devices and technologies that have been introduced, and obviously the demand for mobile accessibility has continued to grow, and one of the limitations of Flex is that we weren't able to provide a mobile platform to our users, so that's one of the primary reasons why we decided to switch. Also, with the modern enterprise business requirements, they're ever evolving, quite demanding in terms of complex functionality, and only modern web technology is able to facilitate that. So again, just another reason why we're switching over to HTML. In 2013, so fall of last year, we posted an article. We began our transition to HTML. We have sort of worked from the back to the front of the system in terms of updating sort of secondary functionality, if you will, first, before we got to the main interfaces of Allocadia, which is really why we're on the call today. We're quite excited to sort of let you know that we're about 90% complete with this release on the end user functionality. So here we are today, 2014. We're going to be speaking about our HTML grid and what new features and functionality as well as enhancements are coming out with this release. All right, so we're actually going to jump into the system here. Jennifer's going to drive as I talk. She's going to show you on the screen some of the key points that we want to highlight. If you have questions, feel free to post them in the questions section. We'll answer them during the Q&A period. We'll also take some questions over the phone at that time. So what does the move to HTML mean for end users, so for you specifically? We want to give you a quick rundown of the new functionality that you're going to find, and we're really hoping that you're going to love it. The first thing you'll notice in the system is that we have a reorganized header. So the header is more streamlined and logical now. Still includes all, well, most of the actions that you're familiar with. It's just been cleaned up and sort of made to flow a little bit better, if you will. So buttons have been moved. Some of the functionality has been grouped together, specifically with regards to the $0 filter. You'll also notice at the top that we now have searchable budgets, views, and grouping drop-down. So for organizations who have a large number of budgets in their hierarchy, or perhaps a number of views, it's quite easy now to just search for the specific budget or view that you're looking for rather than searching through an entire list. We have updated workflow forms in the system as well. So through our existing workflow functionality, users can now input data into our easy-to-use form. So not all customers use this functionality, but for those that do, this is quite a key piece. We've updated the workflow form, so now you can have forms that ask for specific information about your spend. So things like objective, audience, etc. Really any of the details panel fields that you would have set up today. Users can be guided to add these important attributes when they're creating their line item, and it just helps to create a more complete picture of how and why the marketing dollars were spent. So the updated workflow is really going to make your rollout reporting that much more complete, and your reporting and analytics will be also much more accurate. With this release, we also have the introduction of default field values. So in Allocadia, well, as an admin, you can now set default values for most of the field types in the backend. What that means is when one of your users creates a new line item, for instance, you can default the values for some of the fields that they would be filling out. So here we have defaulted values for January and February plan. We have a default reference already input, and we also have a category defaulted in the dropdown. We have updated icons on the grid as well. So the icons throughout the grid are much more intuitive now. As an example, the tag icon actually looks like a tag. When you hover over the cells, you'll actually see the icons that are related to that specific cell type. So we're looking at forecast, we have an edit icon, we have the tag icon, and we also have the ability to add notes. If we're hovering over the invoice icon, or sorry, the invoice column here, the actual column, we have a calculator icon, which indicates it's a calculated field. We have a nice little add actual button that actually pops up a form where you can manually add your actuals. And we also have the ability to add notes to the cell as well. And lastly on this screen, we have filtered exports. So before this release, when you grouped or changed your view, you weren't able to actually export the data that you had on screen. It would export the entire budget and all of the data. Well, as of this release, you can export the specific view and filtering that you're looking at on your screen. And lastly, we have a more flexible page layout. So there are a number of new fields and field types that you can add to the page layout itself. If Jennifer switches over to Q1, you'll actually see that there are a couple of new fields that have been added here. So the first is a budget dropdown, which you could do before, it's just it looks a little cleaner now. And then the second one over, there's actually the ability now to put links into the grid view. So you'll notice when you go through some of the settings as an admin that you just have some more flexibility now in terms of what you may or may not add. Okay. In terms of enhanced usability, so changes to some of the existing functionality in the system, we now have the ability to navigate through the budget grid using keyboard actions. So users asked for enabling keyboard navigation, and we listened. We're now delivering on that with this release. You can use your keyboard to navigate in Allocadia just like you do in your Excel spreadsheets. You can use tab to move between the different cells. You can use shift tab to return to a previous cell, and you can use the up and down arrows to move around as well. We also have introduced the ability to undo previous actions on the budget grid. So if you've input a number of data points into the grid, you can now use Control-V on your keyboard to erase the last change. And there are what we're saying are an unlimited number of undos. So you could make 20, 30 updates to the budget and Control-Z and undo those 20 to 30 changes. We also have new default views in the budget grid. So when you navigate away from the budget tab or you've logged out of the system and you return to Allocadia, Allocadia will actually default to the last view that you were using. So we're remembering what you were working on last. The other neat thing here is that if you switch to a different tab and then come back to the budget tab, we actually remember what budget you were in and will return you to that budget. So you'll never lose track of where you were working. Browser search is a key feature that our users were asking for. You can now use Control-F on your keyboard, use the browser search to search for line items and details that are in your grid. This will make it much easier to find your line items and details instead of scrolling through your entire grid. One of the key points here is just to ensure that when you're searching, you have your categories all expanded. We've made it easier for users to resize columns as well. Double-clicking on any of the headers will allow you to resize the column automatically. You can, of course, still drag the column widths as well. And the other neat thing is that we're actually going to remember the widths that you've set in your budget. So each individual user will have ultimately their own preferences. When you leave and come back to a budget, it will always be the same width that you had set it during your previous session. Lastly, the new items. So when you add a new line item to your budget, we're now moving that new line item to the bottom of the section where it's added. So if we're adding to a category, the new line item will appear at the bottom of that category. If we're adding to the overall budget, it will add to the bottom of the budget. Previously, it added to the top, and it was just a little confusing in terms of placement. We have a new improved right-hand panel in the budget as well. So it's easier to read. We've cleaned it up, and users can actually make this panel wider or they can shrink it down. This just allows them to more easily see the data if you have a large field. So maybe quite a bit of data in one cell, you can expand to ensure that you can read the entire cell. Drag and drop improvements. We've added some new visual cues to help with dragging and dropping in the panel. So you'll notice Jennifer is grabbing on the left-hand side of the line item. There's a little square icon there that she's grabbing to drag. And the visual cue is quite a bit more intuitive now in terms of where you're dragging and where it will actually be dropping and placing in your budget. Better performance. So we're really excited about the performance improvements that are coming with this release. Throughout the budget tab, you're going to find that a lot of the things, so a lot of the functionality is quite a bit quicker, snappier, as our CPO would like to say. You can edit the cells, you can load budgets, you can drag and drop your data and recalculate totals and export your data much quicker than you could before. One important enhancement to highlight is our new incremental loading. So when you load a large budget, we're actually only loading the line items that are appearing on the screen, as well as a small list of additional categories and line items that would appear sort of off screen. And what that means is that we can load the budgets much quicker. As you scroll down through a large budget, the system will actually begin to load more data on the back end to make it seamless in terms of the viewing potential here. So one sort of workaround, as Jennifer was just doing, is if you collapse all of the categories in a large budget, it will actually force the system to load all of your data for you, which would then allow you to use features such as that browser search functionality. All right, and we're just going to jump down to our resource slide. What we want to highlight is just some of the areas that we are providing some resources to customers. So you saw when we first put the GoToWebinar up on the screen, we were highlighting our Allocadia A-Team. So the A-Team is a great place for you to sync up and communicate with your peers. What we've tried to do there is make something that's sort of fun and game-like almost, where you can meet some of your peers, maybe your colleagues are there. You can learn some cool things from our marketing team. We also have the support portal, which is managed by the customer success team here. So we have help articles, tutorials, videos, and things of that nature posted there. We also keep it up to date with all of our release notes. So anything related to this upcoming release and any subsequent release will be posted there as well for your reference. We have the blog, of course, so the Allocadia blog, where we also post articles about the upcoming releases. Sometimes an interesting read. It's a great reference if you're ever wondering sort of what we're going to be releasing or what's coming up. We have some great product update information there in terms of the HTML and that ongoing project. And then, of course, thought leadership and other articles that you'll find relevant. And I just want to mention what's coming next now that we have sort of moved to that 90% goal, if you will. In the first half of this year, we've been focused on updating Allocadia to HTML, as well as delivering some larger enterprise features, such as the audit trail, which was released in a previous release. And now that we've completed the bulk of that HTML transition, we're actually going to turn our attention to other improvements. So this fall, we're focusing on adding more new features for enterprise customers. So these are specific user requests and customer requests that have come across to us. We're really excited to be releasing these new features. Don't have a full list, but we will release roadmap information as it becomes available to us. Specifically, you can watch for features that bring out the performance side of the Allocadia path to performance. So we're going to be adding a lot of new features to help marketing organizations understand better what's working and what's not in the way that they're investing, and to help you to be a better and more performance-driven marketing organization. And with that, that really is the high-level overview of what's coming in release number 54. The release itself will be coming out in about 2 weeks' time. We will be notifying the customer admins of the various accounts for their specific release dates. So those customer admins can stay tuned for that information. We'll be reaching out in a separate email and providing those dates. Perfect. And Jennifer's just working through the questions here.
Now is a good time. If you have any questions, you can type them in the question area. I will read out a couple of them as they're great for everybody. One question from one of our clients is, will Control F work across budgets or only within the current budget?
Yes, great question. So Control F is a browser search functionality, which means that it will only work for the data that is found on the screen. So if you're viewing a specific budget, when you Control F to search, you will only get results for that budget that you're viewing.
Another quick question about the A-team is, what is the join code for the Allocadia A-team?
Yes, perfect. So that is a great question. I'm not sure if you need a specific code. The link Jennifer can put back up on the screen here again. It's just allocadia.influitive.com/join/power hour. If that doesn't work, we can go ahead and get an update from our marketing team to get that code for you.
Quick question or quick comment about the Control F is, it would be great going forward if it could work across budgets too.
Perfect. I'll take a quick note of that.
And it was noted that the A team is requesting a join code. So what we will do is we will send someone running out of the room and find that for us, and they will be right back. Are there any other questions from the masses? Another one. When is the new release starting, and if you will have a live training, and when?
Yes, so the release will be starting, I believe, around the 21st of September. It will not be released to everyone at once, so we will be doing a bit of a staggered release. We will be reaching out to the customer admins to let them know what the dates are for specific customers. So it's best just to check in with your customer admin on your team.
With regards to the scheduling, to training, we don't have a planned training at this point, as most of it is functionality with regards to navigation and just cleaning up the looks. However, if it is something that is thought would be important or beneficial, we can discuss doing that in a future Power Hour.
Absolutely, and just to note, we've been recording the session as well, so the session and the deck will both be available after the webinar. We will publish to our support portal, so be sure to head over there and take a look. We'll also post a link on the A-team so that you can grab the video and the deck here as well, and certainly feel free to distribute that to your team.
Question about Marketo financial management. No. Yes.
Okay. So sorry, just back to the Allocadia A-team. We just heard from our marketing team that they've adjusted it, so you should be able to go to that page now, and you should not be asked for the join code. Marketo Financial Management. So MFM will be released with the same functionality. This is sort of core to the application itself. I don't have dates for the Marketo server update, but we can certainly pass those on to the Marketo team when we get them, and they'll be able to pass it along to you.
So a quick question from one of the users. Will the category functionality be replacing the folder option? So the folders represent, on the Home tab, your hierarchy structure, so the organization of your budgets on the Home tab, whereas the categories, which look like little folders now as well, those will still function in the same way. Previously, these were called campaigns, categories, groupings, depending on the different organization. But these are just still groupings of activities on the budget tab. So it won't replace the original folders, but it will function the same way as categories used to function on the budget tab. And then quick question, does the analytics reporting change at all based on this?
So with this release, we haven't done any work to the analytics tab. That was actually released in the previous release. The analytics tab itself is already in HTML, so that was a seamless transition. So the answer there is no, there's no change to the analytics tab.
And those are all the questions.
Okay. Any other questions that are out there?
here we go. Are there any changes in mapping actuals automatically?
No. So with the integration and the mapping, everything there stays the same. This really is just a front-end change. It really is just interface specific, with the exception of some of those new functions that we highlighted. So your mapping or the automated mapping of your actual NPO data would remain untouched.
Perfect.
Great. If anyone has a question and you want me to unmute, please let me know. We're also happy to do that. If there are no other questions, that will be the conclusion then of our first Power Hour. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
A quick thought, if you do think of a question after the Power Hour is over, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can contact us via the support portal at support.allocadia.com and just submit a support ticket with your question or reach out to someone directly.
Perfect. Thanks so much, everyone. We will watch for questions over the next couple of minutes here, but feel free to jump off if you are finished. Thank you for joining.